Shalom, speaking to you from Brit-Am, in the biblical region of Bethlehem, in the state of Israel, in the territory of Judah. And today we are about to discuss very briefly the clans of Simeon, or Shimeon, as it's sometimes pronounced. So Simeon was one of the Israelite tribes. And Simeon was divided like the other Israelite tribes into different family groups, clans we would say. It says in Numbers 26, the descendants of Simeon by their clans. Of Nemuel, the clan of the Nemuelites. Of Yamin, or Jamin, the family of the Yaminites. Of Yair, the family of the Yainites. Of Zerah, the clan of the Zerahites, or Shaul, the clan of the Shaulites. These are the clans of the Simeonites, 22,200. So there we have it. And this is Simeon. Concerning Simeon, it was prophesied by Jacob. Jacob is also known as Israel. Jacob was the forefather of the Israelite nation. He begat 12 sons. These 12 sons became the forefathers of the Israelite tribe. Simeon was one of these tribes. Before he died, Jacob was also known as Israel. Jacob blessed all of the tribes, and he prophesied concerning their destiny in the end times. He says, especially in the end times, gather together and I'll tell you what will happen to you in the end times. And he predicted that the clan of Simeon would be scattered, would be divided amongst the other tribes. It would be divided up and spread throughout the other tribes. He also said the same about Levi. He says in Genesis 49 verses 5 to 7, Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords, or means of livelihood, Makoratehem in Hebrew. May I never come into their council, may I not be joined to their company. When their anger they killed a man, and at their whim they hamstrung a bull. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, which is cruel. We'll divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So there we have it. That's a blessing. Israel, like Levi, was to be scattered throughout the tribes of Israel. It's a little bit of difference because we find in the fact that Levi was given his scattering, his division throughout the tribes of Israel in a respectful manner. And whereas Simeon was to be found in clans and bits and pieces here and there throughout the other tribes. And the Simeon was in the south. First of all, Simeon was in the south. Simeon is sometimes identified with Judah. The territory of Simeon was in some respects encompassed by that of Judah. But nevertheless, Simeon is counted with the 10 tribes of Israel. Archaeological evidence in the deep northern Sinai, we have archaeological evidence of a group belonging apparently to Simeon who respect the gods, or the god of Shomron, which is the northern tribes. And also we find in the Bible that King Josiah of Judah, after the 10 tribes were exiled, he went through the regions of the 10 tribes that had been exiled, and he purified them in their ruins. Bechuvotehem, it says in the Hebrew. It says purifying them in their ruins. The King James says mattocks. Other translations give other renditions. Hebrew says bechuvotehem, in their ruins. He went through in Hebrew. He went through the cities and the habitations of the 10 tribes after they had been exiled, and he purified the remains of adultery that he found there, all the idols and so on. And mentions that he went through through Simeon, and therefore we see that Simeon was counted in the 10 tribes, and this is confirmed by Midrashim and different traditions. The Khazars, who were who were part of the 10 tribes, but a section at least of the Khazars converted to Judaism, and some of them reattached themselves to Judah and to be found amongst the prisoner Jews, and they had a tradition they would descend from Simeon, or the rank and file would descend from Simeon, whereas the leadership came from Manasseh. This is also hinted at in the Bible and confirmed by Midrashim again. So here we have a section of Simeon reattaching themselves to Judah, and also Simeon to a degree was encompassed by Judah, so a good portion of the Jews are also descended from Simeon, even though Simeon is divided through the other tribes. And why was it prophesied that Simeon should be divided and scattered through the other tribes? So, and what is this blessing? What is this blessing, or one could say not exactly a blessing of Jacob concerning Simeon and Levi? What is it referring to? He says Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their means of living. May I never come into their counsel, and so on. For in their anger they killed a man, and when they hamstrung a bull. So what does it mean? They killed a man. Actually, the man here represents all of the males, not one man, but man in the generic form, because they wiped out all of the males of the city of Shechem. What happened? They had come into the land, Jacob and his family. Dinah, their sister, the sister of the brothers, the daughter of Jacob, went out. The local prince saw her, took her, abused her. He disgraced her, and consequently, Simeon and Levi tricked him and all the inhabitants of the city into circumcising themselves. And when they were at the height of their pain, they went through the city and they exterminated all of the males they found. That is, all of the males of that place. And Jacob was angry at them because of this, and he reproved them for it. So that is what he's referring for. If in their anger they killed a man, and he says, and when they hamstrung a bull. So what is a bull? A bull represents Joseph. Joseph was represented by a bull, as we find in Deuteronomy 33:17. The firstborn of a bull. Joseph was referred to as the firstborn of a bull. So too we have the English nicknamed John Bull, and we think this is divine providence. An example of divine providence showing us how to identify the tribes of Israel. Because we find amongst the English descendants known as Agli meaning young bull, and Agli is where we get the name England from. According to the Zohar, Simeon is also represented by a bull, but we think this is referring to the attachment that important segments of Simeon through the Welsh and the Irish, or through portions of the Welsh and Irish, would have in attaching themselves to the English. Whatever the case, this is what we have. This is what there was. And we have the clans of Simeon, whom we find scattered amongst the lost 10 tribes of Israel. We find the tribes of Israel were taken into exile by the Assyrians. Some were taken to the north, others were taken over the seas. Those taken to the north moved northwards and then moved westwards overland, and they joined up with the others. They populated Western Europe. From their descendants emerged Australia, New Zealand, the USA, Canada, and similar countries. And also they're to be found amongst the populations of Western Europe. We're not saying that everyone there is descended from tribes of Israel, but it's where the tens of Israel are to be found. And we identify them through archaeology, through mythology, through linguistics, and also through names of tribes that settled in that region. The names of these tribes are the tribes of Israelite tribes, or tribes of clans within the Israelite tribes, and they even seen the patterns of settlement, a repetition of the same pattern that existed in biblical times as described by the Bible and confirmed by archaeology. So we have references to Simeon. We find Ptolemy, an early geographer, in the Roman times. He identified the Simeni. In Simeni we see the name Simoni on the east coast of Britain. We also find the Welsh are called Simoni in Welsh and Irish literature. We also have in Irish mythology one of the three main groups that come to settle in Ireland is known as the Fear Bog, and Simeon, son of Israel. Israel is another form of the name Israel. Simeon, son of Israel, was the ancestor of the Fear Bog. In other words, and the ancestor of one of the major groups to settle in Ireland. We also have in the Samnites, also from Simeon in French Brittany and the west coast of France, what is now France. Gaul in that time, as shown by Ptolemy, and this area did have cultural contacts with Wales, and had been settled in part by settlers from Britain, so maybe there's a connection. Also, where we said on the east coast of Britain, of Celtic Britain, where they had the Simoni, we have the Iduma River, which is similarly named to Idumea or Edom, and also in biblical times the land of Edom bordered that of Simeon. And we have the Iceni people. Iceni people in Celtic Britain are famous because of Queen Boudica, who led a revolt against the Romans, and she's a very romantic figure, a very dramatic figure. There have been films and a television series made about her, and she was fighting for the liberty of her people against Roman oppression. She belonged to the Iceni tribe. The Iceni tribe were in the area that Ptolemy said belonged to the Simoni, and the name Iceni is similar to Yakin, Yahin being one of the tribes of Simeon, of one of the clans of Simeon. So here we have a connection. Iceni would have been how the Phoenician Hebrew, or the Phoenicians would have rendered the name Yakin. And these we find these people, or similar people related to them, in the Scythian area of what is now what was formerly the USSR, the Eurasian area. And they'd been there. The Yucatai and other peoples, Celtic peoples, also known as Arami, meaning Syrian, which is another name for Israel, as we're told by Pliny. And these had moved westward when the Scythians moved westward, and in the so-called barbarian invasions, which gave rise to the Anglo-Saxons and Scandinavians and other peoples who settled in the west. And so we have amongst Anglo-Saxons who conquered England, we have the Hekani clan. Hekani is similar to Iceni, because whenever you have a hay, in Hebrew, hair, is the same as the. So Hekani is Iceni, the same as the Iceni, or the Yakin. They were a clan amongst Anglo-Saxons. Also have the Semnons, who belonged to the Suebi and were related to the Orgali and Angli, who were the Anglo-Saxons who conquered England, and they're also connected to the Lombards. Lombards were allies of the Angli. Lombards also known as Hedobards. Hedobard is a Lombards now later settled in northern Italy. The Hedobards have a name similar to that of Olhad, one of the clans of Simeon. We also have Yamin, who became the young Vikings of Scandinavia. Shaul, another clan, another clan of Simeon, became the Seagulls of Wales. Fierce, darkish people, according to descriptions in southern Wales, southwest Wales. We had Namuel, who became the Nemeti. On the Rhine River bordered the Vangions. The Vangions, according to the Jewish historian Greitz, captured Jewish women. They were in the Roman forces who captured Jewish women when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, and from these women they took them back with them to Germany, and the women had children. The women brought up the offspring as Jews, and that was one of the first Jewish communities in Germany. So there we have a list of peoples from Simeon, and we find them in the west. We find them amongst Western peoples. We find them especially in what is Gaul, present-day France, and the western coasts, and also amongst the Celtic peoples, and also amongst Anglo-Saxons in the British Isles. And we also found them in northern Italy, so we see they were scattered about somewhat. And we found them amongst the Jewish people, and they were divided amongst the tribes of Israel, as Jacob had prophesied. May the Lord God of Israel bless all of you. Thank you.